that he experienced. So I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit because there's a lot of things that happened in between now and this point that I'm about to tell you. But one night my mom and Dwayne were having an argument, and I just didn't want to be there, and Cowboy told me, if you ever feel like you need to get away, I don't care what the courts say, I'll come get you, just call me. So I snuck out the window and I called him, and he was there within 15 minutes, like a 30-minute drive. And when he came around the corner in his little white truck, I was sitting on the corner, and my mother, after they had, I guess, were done fighting, she was checking on me in my room, and she saw that the window was open, and she walked around the block and found me, and we were sitting on the corner together. And this would have been 1982, so it'd be like 11 maybe. 1992, sorry. And Dwayne, seeing Cowboy's truck late at night, creeping around the corner, he wanted to defend himself in case Cowboy was coming to kill him. And so he pulled around the side of the property where there was a fence and a lot of weeds and stuff. You couldn't really see over it. You could see the truck, but Dwayne was probably so inebriated that he didn't know where we were, me and my mother, and so he probably assumed that it was just Cowboy. And Dwayne had gotten his revolver and walked out the side of the house, screen door, and started unloading at the truck. Cowboy and myself were trying to get my mother in the truck, and she was being very stubborn and said, "No, it's fine. I'll be fine." But the fact is that there were firearms being discharged in our direction, and if she'd have popped over the corner, there's no way to know he wouldn't have been so inebriated to just take a shot. He shot holes in the neighbor's house. There was a hole right between the neighbor's children's bedroom, right between the two kids' beds. We went and filed a police report, and not long after, my mother filed for divorce and got separated from Dwayne. Well, of course, this was one of the things that was going to be used in the ongoing custody battle. And that's one of the reasons my mother didn't want to make a big deal out of it. So again, I'll fast forward. And Dwayne, one weekend at a little festival we have here called Contraband Days, decided he wanted to go bungee jumping. Well, he had a big insurance claim against a carrier company. It was 18-wheeler that hit him. As I said, we were being followed, and PIs were everywhere all the time. And they snapped pictures of Dwayne jumping off of the bungee jump. Well, that quickly, and those pictures were sent to the insurance company that he was suing. And the whole pretense was, if he's so hurt, how's he bungee jumping? Well, the fact is he was so inebriated, he probably was in a lot of pain the next day from bungee jumping, but he was the kind of guy that just, he wanted to have fun, even at his own expense, And I gotta admit it, that night when he did that, it was so funny. My mother was just face palming the whole time, like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this, it's so stupid. Because she knew the PIs were watching. I didn't like Dwayne at that time. I didn't like him at all when he was alive. I think I've mentioned that. It just wasn't what I knew, When you're a child, you develop emotional bonds with those who are caring for you, and you're also a child, and you're not aware of all the things that go on in an adult world. And I felt safe with Cowboy. So when the time came for me to give a statement of who I wanted to live with, I just wanted peace and quiet. I didn't want all the drama anymore. And I was guilty myself of listening to a lot of the things people said about my mother, and how she was the one that was kind of crazy and overreacting and all this. So I resented my mother for a long time. But in 1994, the case was, or the hearing was Cowboy got custody of his non-biological son, and I believe that he expected my mother to be so distraught over that she would just come back. Because he is in love with her. He's obsessed with her. And hell, even on their headstone that they've already got out at the graveyard, it says, in quotations, some say true love doesn't exist. I tell you, it isn't true. I've been in love 1,000 times, and every time with you. As I said, I'm not doing this to discredit this man. I only hope the best for him, and I want him to get help, and make peace with some of the things he's done. He has told me in his very remorseful and regretful, but at the same time, he doesn't feel he did anything wrong. He still contends that one of the biggest regrets he has is not murdering my father. Still. And also that I should have never known my father. Still. And I just don't agree with that kind of philosophy of life. I have experienced the horrific ordeal of being separated from my children and being told that I can't see my children because I'm some sort of monster. And I don't agree with his viewpoint on that. This past Easter, and 2 months prior, whenever I posted the GoFundMe, it was because I had missed a car payment that he had co-signed on, Cowboy had co-signed on, and it was the first payment that I had missed. There's a 10-day grace period. There's a couple times I had to come up with some money and get it in the bank account, but I'd been unemployed, and it was a real struggle to keep the bank account, out of NSF fees and in the negative. So he immediately sold the vehicle, and that's whenever and at that time I had stopped. I sort of realized, that for all of these years I really believed that he was a great man for taking the responsibility of another man's child. And a lot of people would think that I lived a very privileged life, and in many ways I guess so. But I gotta say that money is not love. And sorry to cut the video there. My roommate was just checking on me. I really like my roommate. Don't remember where I was. Okay. He got custody of a non-biological child. It was actually a pretty big deal in the District 14 Calcasieu Parish. Cases referenced. But it wasn't, the result wasn't what he expected whenever he got custody. He expected, I believe, for my mother to come back. And this is a strength that I have learned from my mother, directly or indirectly. because she made the right choice for herself, and the best choice she could make for me. There was a lot of just abusive life. She had never had a job, you know. She was a stay-at-home mom, and there was a thumb, you know, on her head, or a foot. And she wasn't going to go back to that, no matter what. And I find that incredibly inspiring because, yeah, okay, you won. You got my child. Congratulations. I'm not coming back. And I remember Cowboy being pretty depressed for a while. I was court ordered to go to therapy. I had to get checked out of school to do that. I was in therapy from age 8 all the way till high school, really. And in high school, right before high school, I got held back in 7th grade. My therapist recommended that I just get the fuck away. So, Cowboy reluctantly and begrudgingly, because he hates therapists, hates them, paid for me to go to a summer camp. Okay? There's one of my many privileges. Got to go to summer camp. Well, it was actually quite good for me. But whenever they came to get me, my mother was with Cowboy, and also my grandfather, who I was always very close with, and also his wife. She was not there, but in fact she had died in a horrific car accident. 18-wheeler hit her and she burned alive in a truck in Vidor, Texas. My grandfather never remarried. He was heartbroken. It was we became very close because his wife, Wilma Faye, always treated me so well. It encouraged me, told me how smart I was and how talented I was, to never give up on my dreams and things that no one ever told me. And I knew when my grandfather was there in the truck that there was something serious had changed, some big change had occurred, because my mother was there with Cowboy. And I was infuriated. I didn't speak much to either of them, my mother or Cowboy. I talked to my grandfather. And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is one of the reasons I love my grandfather, and I miss him very much. He's just so straight up. I don't know, Bubba. It's fucked up. He was one of my very best friends. I still miss him very much. And from that point, I was about 13, going on 14. My mother had moved back in with Cowboy. And she told me, I'm here for you. I'm not here for him. Or she had been married again after Dwayne, and it didn't work out. He was an alcoholic as well. And it got to the point where she just had very little access to me. And as a parent, I can understand. But in a way, she went back into that abusive relationship. But she had drawn some very clear boundaries, because she didn't cave whenever Cowboy got custody of me. She said, okay, you took, imagine this woman, like, she gave up a child to protect him from this man. And now this man has custody over her other child, and her and Dwayne both say we were late love children, Travis and I. Her and Dwayne had been romantically involved in one way or another since the 60s. And Dwayne actually went to Woodstock. He was kind of a hippie. And he would tell me, you're a love child. So, I wasn't doing well in school. I would spend 4 hours a day playing my guitar, and I didn't care much about school. And I had experienced a lot of adult things, and when I went to school, it seemed like such a facade, and it was. People were doing stuff that was just not interesting to me. If anything, I was interested in getting a job and getting out of that abusive house. And my brother Mark, during his divorce, had to move in. And now that I think about it, he was probably concerned about me too, because he knew I was doing drugs and stuff. In fact, he even found a bunch of paraphernalia in my room and brought me to jail one time, teaching me a hard lesson or whatever. He loves to tell that story. I brought my own brother to jail. It's a little shock value. We're like, damn, dude, you sent your own brother to jail for pot? Well, one morning I got up to go to school, and there were some kids on TV on the local news station that had built a Mardi Gras float from some club at Sulphur High where I went to school. The Cowboy made a comment, some disparaging comment like, you weren't such a fucking loser, you know, and you might do something productive with your life. And honestly, I was ready to be gone. I had tried running away several times, and I said something that I shouldn't have. I said, "Fuck you," and I meant it. Because at no point had he ever acknowledged, or really anybody, what kind of shit I'd gone through. And when I said that, he lunged across the couch. And we had this old 70s funky couch that when you sat in, you just sink in really far. And he put his knee on my chest and he started strangling me. And when I looked in his face, it was so much, his face was beet red and his eyes were huge. And I passed out and I came to, and he was strangling me. I passed out another time, and I woke up and I heard my mother screaming. And I'm not able to breathe. It's choking the life out of me. And then my brother Mark, I see him running in the corner of my eye in his tighty-whitey Hanes. And I've never seen anything like this in my life. I haven't still. Except for that day. He picked him up by his throat. He was laying on top of me and he picked him up by his throat and literally picked him up, and all in one motion within seconds he moved around the couch holding this dude and slammed him up against the wall and held him by his throat, squeezing his larynx so hard that he couldn't get any air out. And he was very calm. My brother Mark has a very eerie calmness when there's things like this going on. Like he scares people because he's so calm in very chaotic situations. And he said, if you ever touch my brother again, I will kill you. Do you understand? And then I was catching my breath, like when you've been strangled. It takes a while to catch your breath. You know, you're taking deep breaths, kind of thing. But I do remember Cowboy trying to push the air through his larynx to say, I understand, because Mark was not letting go until he got an answer. And the longer it took for him to get the answer, the more he was squeezing on his larynx. He finally was able to get it out. I understand. And then Mark just let him go, dropped him. Cowboy fell on his knees, catching his breath. And I was so angry, I caught my breath. I went to my room to get dressed for school, and I punched the wall. And there's still the hole in the wall where I punched. And then I started talking to my high school counselor. getting emancipated. I told her about the shooting and the strangling. She was very willing to help me get all the paperwork that I needed pre-filed, so that the day that I turned 16, the paperwork would be approved. And I spent the rest of the time skipping school, doing drugs, and, you know, whatever I wanted to do. At that point, I felt like I had earned the right to be an adult. And I got emancipated, and I got a job, moved in with a friend who had dropped out as well. And one day at work, I got a visit from a sheriff, and since I was still technically a minor, even though I was emancipated, someone had called in a favor, I guess. They said that I was a danger to myself and others, and they arrested me at my job and brought me to Memorial Hospital. And I spent 3 days in observation, and they let me go. After that, I believe that was whenever I went to stay with my cousin Holly for a little while. And then I moved back in with my friend. I need to go back in my mind and relive that, sort of get it right, but it's general events that happen. So, why am I making this video? Well, in the book that I'm writing, it's called The Tao of the Father, The Way of the Father. And my involvement in Scientology sort of has some connections to how I was,